Everyone, we are live. So those of you in the chat room today, I am actually Pelly Eklund in the chat room today. For those of you, because Mike is on location. So
that is true. I can't even look at the chat. So if you want to say something bad about me, go ahead.
This is your chance, guys. Boy, man, did they not take long? All right, never mind. Just kidding. All right, so first of all, you guys did a prog rock podcast in the middle of the night.
We did. We couldn't wait any longer.
I saw it. I was cracking up. I was talking. If we're gonna do something, we would do something like that in the future. It'd be fun. I want to get my buddy Brett, who was the guitar player in their band, and still is a guitar player in their band. And he's in a signed. He just got signed to Sony Records with another prog rock band, and just put an album out like last month. So he's a prog rock legend. He was on Ekelin, and he was in the band Ekelin, which was signed to Sony Records, and Ekelin had some. They were pretty big in the prog circles. They toured with I want to say they toured with is it Dream Theater?
Dream Theater, yeah, I know Dream Theater.
They toured with Dream Theater, and I think they might be Giants, who I don't think are really necessarily prog, but they're kind of prog.
I don't know them well enough. Yeah,
they're actually really good. They're fun bands to watch to see. They're kind of like
they're not prog.
If I could say anything, they're like the prog version of the Bare Naked Ladies, perhaps, if that's possible. Anyway, but I mean, they're not prog.
I have an affinity for bands of this particular country right here. Bare Naked Ladies are not one of them.
Yeah, you don't like fun music.
Actually, no. Yeah, I disagree, Mike. I saw them at the NHL All-Star Game in Minnesota. They were playing an outdoor festival, and it started to snow, and they didn't care, and they kept playing.
That's amazing. Great guy.
That's great, and I like their bass player. I think it's Jim Cregan, who's a really good bass player. But there's one song that I like, and it's Brian Wilson. Other than that, you can have it.
Yeah, you're a thief of joy. That's what it is.
Oh man, no, there's a bunch of great Bare Naked. There's a bunch of great Bare Naked Ladies.
What was that? Sorry.
And there's also really we toured with a band called Moxie Frubus from Toronto, and they were like another Canadian. They were basically Moxie Frubus and I'm sure some of you guys out there remember them. But they came up at the same time as Bare Naked Ladies, very similar to the Bare Naked Ladies. Oddly enough, one of the guys I got close with was Joel, who was like the guy who was very famously on the CBC, like in a huge sex scandal. Like he had the late night show.
Oh, Gian Gamashi.
Yes, he was in Moxie Frubus, and I used to hang out with him all the friggin' time. Before this was back then, and he was a wonderful person, like a great guy. It's just a very bizarre thing.
Yeah, usually sexual predators are. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like
No.
Like
I'm just kidding.
OJ's neighbors liked them. I get it.
I'm just saying. I mean, there was no. I mean, we were all musicians. This was the '90s. Things were crazy.
That's like the story I heard. There was a serial killer named Kemper, and I'm not comparing this to the other guy, but I'm just saying there was a serial killer named Kemper, and there was a documentary on him, and they interviewed one of the police officers who had captured him, and the officer said, I really like Kemper. He seems to be a great guy. If it wasn't for the fact that he killed his mother and about 12 other women, he'd be great.
I know. I mean,
you never know what's out there.
Some horrible things, allegedly, or I don't know how it all actually played out.
I got a couple of quickie things.
Go ahead.
The first one is, since Mike's on mute.
Thanks for saving me from this topic.
Houston Astros won, the Yankees lost. The world is happy. That's the one thing that everybody's happy about. That I'll move on.
No. Don't say everybody, because only mutants are happy that the Astros won over the sainted Yankees. The Astros suck. I hope the Nationals kick their butt.
It's been a hard decade, Mike. Anyhow, the next thing is there's a guy in the NFL, Melvin Gordon, who had a holdout for the Los Angeles Chargers. It's hard for me to say that, but they moved to LA. And he kept complaining he wasn't getting the ball enough. Well, on first and goal with the potential game-winning touchdown on the line, he went 3 times trying to get a yard into the end zone, couldn't do it, and on the third one, he fumbled. So now, of course, he's getting ripped to no end today on Twitter. But my problem with this whole thing is On the third one, they said, oh, well, he fumbled in the pile. Unless they have a camera in the pile, I didn't see where the ball was out immediately, and they probably shouldn't have called that a fumble. It's like, so now after every one of those goal line stands, they went to replay. They said, no touchdown. They went to replay. You know, you can't do replay on every single play. Now, on scoring drives, I get it, but if it's obvious, don't go to replay. You know what? You have to let the referees call something once in a while. Just imagine watching that game and like every 2 seconds there was a replay call. Like, come on.
Yeah. And the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
My sentiments and salutations to Eagles Nation.
As a really external Eagles fan who will watch the games because it's the law if you live here. And I do enjoy it at times. It's a good Sunday thing to do, whatever. Whenever I sit down and watch them, they lose, so I shouldn't watch them. But I didn't watch last night, so I'm sitting there and one thing about that team is it's insane is how many points the Eagles give up in the first quarter of games. Like,
no, that's a real thing, and I think that's on their coach Doug Peterson. And actually,
yeah,
this is the first time, and I don't watch every Eagles game. But
Jim Schwartz, is it? Jim Schwartz, their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, since my dad went turncoat and turned Eagles fan,
that's right.
I watch more because otherwise we'd have no football to talk about.
The force is strong in this area, Russ. It's hard.
Yeah, and it is partially Jim Schwartz, but it's a lot Doug Peterson too, because a lot of times he gives the ball to the other team if they win the kickoff. This time they actually kept it, and they still didn't score. End of the day, they've overrated this team because they have a lot of aging, expensive players.
Yeah,
there's a hockey team that we're going to talk about in a few minutes that has the same thing, and it happens to be in the same town. That's it.
Well,
that's a great tease. I like it.
Yeah, what a matchup next week, Russ. The team that can't stop anybody in the first quarter against the team that can't score in the first quarter.
Yeah,
the Bills and the Eagles. I heard somebody say on a podcast as I was driving up here this morning, says the Bills could be the worst 5-1 team in the history of professional football. I think that's a little bit of hyperbole, but it's close.
No, it's hyperbole, but in this league right now, it's kind of close.
Well, the Sabres have taken over the town, though. We're going to get to that. All right, here we go. Ready?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, October 21st. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What am I doing? Hockey World, Monday, October 21st, 2019.
I'm Michael Lagello, and I'm on location.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and now I have to take a picture of myself and my cat because of the shirt, and now it's sort of working.
It's Mike in Canada. All right.
I remember that reference.
There you go. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeybuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. The podcast comes every Monday through Friday in the afternoons to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to start with, before we get in, we're going to get Russ some Flyers and Ranger stuff, which I definitely want to get into. The 3 stars this week are, I know we don't always talk about 3 stars, but the 3 stars this week are kind of remarkable. like all of these guys had first star weeks. I think we're going to start doing something on Monday mornings with Hockey Buzz where I have like guess the 3 stars blog before they come out at around noon every Monday, right? Because this is like, it's fun. It's actually a fun thing to do. 3rd star this week, Mr. Carter Hutton. And I had to start there because the goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres played only 2 games, but stopped all 72 shots he faced. And that's making the Sabres now 7-1-1. And at some point, we're going to have to say the Sabres are just going to make the playoffs, and that's the bottom line.
No, we don't. And one of those shutouts was against that offensive dynamo known as the LA Kings. So that should mitigate that.
Yeah, floundering Dallas Stars who were floundering until they came to Philly. But yeah, that's that was before they came to Philly. So, but Hutton, this is all this funny stuff about Carter Hutton because for years I said the Predators needed a better backup if they went to the playoffs and they wanted to win. But I actually really like Carter. I know Carter Hutton, and the joke about this thing is like he was a Flyer, if you remember, for a brief period of time. He's a great guy. I'm really happy for his success, and even though I didn't think at the time, he went to St. Louis and turned into a heck of a goalie, and then people forget the Blues story before the year they won the Stanley Cup was Carter Hutton. Remember that? It's kind of crazy. All right, so going back now to the 2nd star, John Carlson. Now, John Carlson is ridiculous. He has put
But nobody saw this coming, right? Because I talked about him all last year and how he got ignored for the Norris, but now this year he's even better.
Oh yeah, no, he had he had 8 points in 4 games as a defenseman, and but the crazy thing about him is in 18 games start of the season. No, in 15 is it what's the number? Shoot. Oh yes, he's got 18 points through 10 games this year. That's what he has. 8 points through games, which is only 2 other players have ever done that on defense, and their names are Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey. How about that? To have 18 points in 10 games. Coffey did it twice. I mean, no, Orr did it twice, and Coffey actually had 20 points in 10 games one year.
Hey, what team could have drafted John Carlson?
What was that? What
team could have drafted John Carlson, but instead traded for Steve Eminger?
Yeah, that would be the Flyers. The Flyers. Okay. Eminger was good though for a while. He's really a good scout. I know he was good, but he was very, very. He got hurt almost immediately. But anyway,
let it go, Russ. Let it go.
All right, but let's get all down. We should do a show where we just go through every team's worst move they ever made. That's not the worst move the Flyers have made, believe it or not. There's others.
No, that's true. You're right.
Now, Luke Shen for James Van Riemsdyk might be.
That's not even the worst.
Or signing. How about signing Ilya Brzgala?
No. Adam Oates. They gave.
How about dropping Patrick Sharp? Like that was the thing. That to me, I'll throw that one out there as like a really serious one that they got rid of him for nothing. That's a good one. Anyway,
you're telling me trading Adam Oates for like 3 first-rounders was better?
Well, it turned out none of those. Who was one of those? Who were those first-rounders? I remember one of them was that goalie that was supposed to be incredible but never turned into anything.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it that far. I'll be honest.
But anyway, so let's just say that we'll do that. It's a fun show to do at some point. But let's go into the first star category, which is like otherworldly, which is like because I mean normally Carlson, I mean doing something that hasn't been done since Paul Coffey and Bobby Orr did it should get you a first star, right? But
yes,
or maybe at least player of the month, maybe maybe he gets player of the month. But the first star, David Pastrnak in Boston, had
goals in 6 consecutive games.
But had 7 goals and 2 assists in 3 games. So he put up 9 points in 3 games.
There is still a negative with that.
Go ahead.
The top line is 70% of their scoring.
Oh, I know. That's been the Bruins forever, right? And it hasn't really hurt them that much. They've gone pretty far.
Well, they didn't go far enough though that you could make that argument. But
yeah, and I saw them firsthand on Saturday, and see that's the problem is that line is virtually all their offense, and if you can limit them. Not neutralize them because they're too good. You can't neutralize them. But if you can limit them, then you're in good shape. And what Babcock did against them is he put Marner and Matthews together, something he's loath to do throughout his entire career in Toronto. He doesn't want to put those 2 guys together, but he did to match up against that line, and they outscored him 2-1, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy, but let's move on to we do want to get to the the Flyers discussion a little bit here, and
we're going to talk about it.
Let's start in the Flyers, Russ, because you were at the game against Dallas, and we all watched it. This weekend, as a typical thing is when you're a hockey writer, people know you're a hockey writer. You go out and about like we were at a thing for my daughter, like different fairs were going on and stuff like that. You're of course going to run into people who or know you from the show, or like, what's going to happen to Carter Hart? Like people are just panicking. Everyone's in panic mode, right? And I think it's way too early to panic on Carter Hart, guys. I'll just say that.
This is a sophomore season. We tried to tell everybody.
Oh yeah. Remember, I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm usually right. And in this case, I mean, I'm not going to say I was right in picking the Flyers to finish in 6th, but I really think that there are some serious issues with this team. There's the balance. There's a hockey balance that you sort of sense.
Yeah, right. And this is what we talked about last year. Okay, Carter Hart is one of the best young goaltending prospects in the game. And the problem I had last year in a season where this team was crap, and I'm not saying they should have tanked, but I'm saying when you go through 8 goaltenders, there's a problem with your organization, and there's a problem with the team in front of the goaltender as well as the goaltenders themselves. And
that's what it was.
Right, and he played great. He played out of his mind. But the problem is, if you didn't fix the problem that was in front of the goaltender, and you have a 20-year-old goalie who you're expecting to play 60 games and be Carey Price, and he's not, then the problem is deeper than just in goal.
All right, so there's a couple.
And we'll get to it. But the Flyers have recalled Joel Farabee, and that'll fix everything. But we'll talk about that later.
All right,
but
let's get to the NHL part first. So yeah, as razor sharp as last year, no, that's obvious. He was struggling a little bit in the last game. He was indecisive about whether to ice the puck or give the puck to his defenseman. There was a little miscommunication on a few plays. So he wasn't totally settled in. Happens to every goalie. We move on. Surprisingly, I'm going to fast forward to the end of the game where AV didn't really kill him, but I guess because they're so fragile right now, he doesn't want to bury them. Okay. Get back to the game. Dallas completely outskated them. They're, again, the second or third team that have come in there and made the Flyers look slow. Yeah. And it's not just the defensemen anymore. It's forwards, too. There were loose pucks. They didn't get to one loose puck first. I think they lost every puck battle in the third period. I really swear.
Did. I mean, and to be fair a little bit here, if you're not paying attention to this game, and if it's just two teams that I'm that you're following casually and you're betting on games, you knew that Dallas was gonna have a good game. This is it was time for Dallas.
All right, so let's get to the meat of this now.
Yeah.
To me, the meat of this game was Philly got the first goal.
Yeah.
Dallas had to probably be a little worried, although Ben Bishop not the guy to worry, but it was 1 goal, 1 shot. Not the way you want to start off when you hadn't won a game in regulation all season, right?
Yep.
So things are, going along a little bit. Stewart makes his way on the ice. He has a fight.
Yeah.
If you want to see me beat up Jamie Alexiak, great, because his nose bled fine. It was pretty even, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He did that, right? 2 plays, 3 plays after that, someone from the Flyers crashes, somebody from Dallas into the boards. Then both teams start bubbling over, right?
Yeah.
At that point, the Dallas Stars were completely woken up from their whatever you want to call it, and took over the game. Took over the game completely.
Yeah, totally.
The Flyers did practically nothing after that, disproving the point that, a fight's going to really, jolt the team, because it did for about 10 seconds. And that was it. And they fell behind, and they never came back to that game.
A great point. In the new NHL, I'm still, the new NHL, quote unquote, since the loss of the 2-line pass, I still, there's still, since the 2-line pass went away, we have seen fighting when you're winning to be a terrible idea. It's just never, and the most famous one for Flyers fans, I know I would just put it out there in a second that they would get it, is Game 7, Pittsburgh Penguins. The Flyers are up in the series. Carcillo goes out, beats the hell out of somebody. Yep. The Penguins storm back and take the series. And it was one of those moments that was it went from Carcillo, we're up 2-0. Carcillo's killing somebody. The place is going crazy, to the worst idea Carcillo ever could have had. Because you just right, if you're gonna have a guy like Stewart, you have him out there for when the team is looking awful and just not getting anything together, and they're down 3-1 or whatever,
Well, first of all, the worst idea Carcillo ever had was stepping on the ice for some of his teams. But that being said, it's the last thing you want to do against a team like Dallas who is struggling is giving them a reason to rally. And sending out Stewart to get into a fight is just utter stupidity. It's there is a time and a place. You have Stewart on your bench in case a team is physically manhandling you and maybe you're losing and you need a spark. When you're up, that's the last thing you want to do is give the other team a spark.
Especially a team like Dallas who is already they're struggling. They've given up a goal, like Russ said. They're pissed off as it is. They just needed this is what they needed. It is perfect. They needed a common enemy. Right. Versus turning on themselves, which they're going to start to do in that situation where, if you're losing and you give up the first goal again, you're going to look around the bench. People are going to be screaming at each other. The second he does that, the Stars aren't fighting with each other anymore. They're all pissed off at him. And then that was what they needed maybe to turn their season around. It's funny because I remember the St. Louis Blues turnaround last year. I know it was later. Came in Philadelphia.
You never know what's going to do it. And it could always be something like that.
Yeah. So that are huge.
So now I look at this and I say, all right, this team, the minute everything goes down and they start saying Farabee's coming up, it is a sign of desperation, and I'll tell you why. There's two reasons. The first one is forget about what Chuck Fletcher said, like, hey, there's going to be guys going from Lehigh to Philly the first few weeks. You know why he said that? Because they have no cap space. So he knew that was going to happen, and he wanted to make it acceptable to everybody, so he got ahead of that. Getting past that.
Yeah.
Joel Farabee played in 4 games. He had 4 points, 3 goals. That is not enough of a window for me in the AHL to say he's now fully confident to come up to this league and start scoring goals. Like that, that's a big leap of faith right there. And not only did they do that, Eck, but now they're practicing with Giroux at center. Now they may be putting Kevin Hayes on the third line. Like, this has now become over management, over analyzation.
It's analysis by paralysis. And
they're so desperate to do well this season that now they're trying to thwart everything, every possibility, every minute if they can.
Well, the big thing about what's happening now is Giroux is having a horrible start this season, right? And he's just like, but people have to remember, that the Giroux Couturier combination was like literally one of the best combos in the NHL for this last several years. The Flyers have just decided not to use that at all, and basically, I think because of the need to have Kevin Hayes have an impact, they moved Hayes up because Hayes is their big signing and AV's big signing, that they're going to they move Hayes up in the lineup, right? So that pushes Giroux back a little bit. And puts in a way, I mean, listen, Couturier and Giroux are a perfect combination. There's no reason you would ever put Giroux back at center right now. That makes no sense whatsoever because they're
messing with it. It doesn't mean they'll use it tonight, but they're messing with it. Gostisbehere has no points. He played the worst game I've ever seen him play as a pro in that game. I don't believe JVR has a goal.
Yeah, I don't think he does either.
He's goalless. And so when you start looking at this, it's more than just bringing up a young kid. It's a lot more than that. And unfortunately, what I think people are going to find out, and this is why I said the Flyers and the Eagles have a similar thing, the Flyers bought age on the blue line. Niskanen looks great right now, and I think he'll be fine all year. He's just not going to be the Matt Niskanen of old offensively, and that's fine. But Justin Braun's going to wear down. He's going to wear down maybe mid-season.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I'd be concerned about, Russ, and I know we've been talking with you about AV's time with the Rangers and Peter about his time with the Canucks. He's definitely a coach who doesn't play favorites, but there are players who can play for him, and there are players who cannot play for him. And you have to be concerned when Gostisbehere, who is, I think, arguably your best offensive defenseman, either him or Provorov, but I think he's a better offensively, has got nothing right now. Just doesn't seem to fit. And Van Riemsdyk, who you spent $7 million on just last year, seems like he's completely out to lunch.
Well, those two guys have no points in 6 games, both of them. So that's like, I mean, when you have
hard to believe. Now again, this is 2 years running. JVR has started out this way. Now he wasn't this bad last year, but he started off real slow. And I remember he had like 3 goals after like 10, 12, 13 games, and we were like, wow, what's going on? And he picked it up. You can make the argument whether they were garbage time goals or not. That's for you to make, for you to worry about, not for me. But there was that. The other thing is they moved Gostisbehere now off the top power play in that game, which is a big statement for a new coach.
Yeah.
And because if he's not on the top power play, his worth goes down tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, tremendously. It takes a dip.
He's a power play specialist, nothing else.
Scott Lawton showed nothing. 0 this year. Maybe he peaked last year. I'm not sure what the deal is with Scott Lawton, but he was a step slower, and he didn't have a lot of speed to give to begin with. Again, they bought these guys. They brought in Pitlick. Pitlick's okay. Nobody's ever going to say he stinks, but he's never going to put points up for you.
He is what he is. I talked to somebody about Pitlick yesterday, Russ. He is what he is. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And he works really hard. He hits and stuff like that. But he is also the kind of guy that you don't have if you're a playoff team.
You can make the argument Minnesota made the playoffs with him, right?
Yeah, but I think that, it's like where you are. I think where they are, they shouldn't have him at this point. Like it feels like you have too many of those type of too many of that kind of stuff. Like the younger kids who have Turinsky, these guys are played hard, but they're not these guys. I mean, are they getting sent back? I guess I got sent back.
All right, let's play armchair GM, all of us. We knew Brian Boyle was free over the summer. The Flyers are having a center issue. They thought Pitlick could possibly fill it. They thought Lutton could possibly fill it. Now lately, Raffles trying it. Nobody's filling it. They could have had Brian Boyle, but they signed Chris Stewart instead.
That's a big thing. And then it's funny. I wrote yesterday about Boyle signing. It's fascinating how you sort of find things out after the fact. But there were several teams, and the Flyers weren't one of them. They should have been. They weren't one of them, but there were like three teams that I found out about who were having internal debates about whether to sign Brian Boyle. Like this was a big thing, like that was going on around the league. Like they were like, you'd have like the GM say yes, the coach say no, or whatever, the opposite things. Some scouts say you got to get, that kind of thing. One owner really wanted him, but everybody was just kind of like, and every one of those teams I talked to, this is really funny, thought that they were going to be able to get him if they wanted him. Yeah, he'll be there. He'll still be there, and that's a typical thing, right? He'll still be there. We'll just. All right, we'll talk about this. We probably should get him, but you know what? Since we're not sure about it, we'll give it another week. And then when he signs, everyone freaks out. And it was funny because it's like Boyle, who probably his agent, if his agent would have loved to be able to do this, in a different way, because if he knew what was going on, I think he would have.
He could have got more money.
Yeah, because he should have. But he was a typical thing where everyone's afraid to take that leap, but everybody needs that kind of player. And it was really interesting.
And if you look at what he signed for $940,000, which I believe is the prorated amount because he's 6 games into the season of $925, which is an entry level contract for if they're players in the NHL. So you're talking about, okay, he's a fourth line guy. What did he score? Like 17 goals last year, Russ. He scored a bunch of goals. He's still effective. He's not fast, but
the Flyers is dead. They definitely should have thought about this guy. But instead, they brought in a guy who I think played, around 7 minutes last game. That's like a shift a period. Like, what are you going to do with, if you're telling me you have Chris Stewart again because he's 44% in the shootout, I am just going to laugh because how many shootouts are you going to get into?
They get.
Because you have to have
a lot of them. There is for Flyers. That is a point.
No, but here's the philosophy of it, and this is math. So keep up with me. You have to be in the lineup to play in the shootout, to score in the shootout.
Yeah.
So how many of those shootouts are, if they have 3 shootouts in a week, he'll be in one of them. You know what I mean? That's the issue.
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with that. I just think that I don't know.
Keep up with me. That's
people are like, people are killing Gostisbehere, saying he's done. Gostisbehere's not done.
He's not done.
He's still crazy young. Gostisbehere is, however,
no, but what they're doing, right?
Ride. Like he's always been a roller coaster ride emotionally.
Well,
when he's great, he is great, and he's great in the locker room, and he's the best thing around. When he's not, he's the opposite of that. So
yeah, but what they're doing right now is affecting his value. I mean, if he doesn't work out and he's not doing well there, then the option of trading him and getting somebody who's a better fit with Vigneault's system is always an option. But playing him game after game and him struggling affects his value.
It really does. It really does. So let's move on to the Rangers. What do we have with the Rangers, Russ?
So the Rangers it's interesting. The honeymoon with Dave Quinn's over because they signed, a lot of players. They traded for players. So now there's expectations. So now you have expectations in New York and players that they've drafted. Some are with the team, some aren't. So like Lucas Anderson, as an example, pretty high draft pick for them, first rounder. He's getting 7 to 8 minutes some games, 12 minutes other games. So he's averaging just over 10.5 minutes, and he doesn't look good. But the guy's 21 years old. Like, this is the worst thing you could do to a 21-year-old. If you're really that unsure about what he can do game to game, then send him to Hartford for 20, 30 games. You're better off letting him do that to find his game there. He's not going to find his game in 7 or 8 minutes on the fourth line. It's not going to happen. So now that is partially what's wrong with the Rangers. Justifying Brendan Smith, I don't care how many points he has as a forward, is dumb, and that's just taking time away from other kids. So now you have this situation. We still don't really know what Lee Ruff does on defense. There are days that defense is just awful. Like Vancouver jumped out to a 3-0 start like that. And luckily, the Rangers fought back. They have Panarin, so now you have a guy that can lead the charge. And they did, and they had a good third period, and still lost. End of the day, though, this team now is no longer being taught. And Mike and I were having this conversation. There are very few coaches left in this league that are willing to teach young players.
Yeah, it's really true.
Because their ass is on the firing line from the very beginning. I mean, we were talking earlier, and I said, there's no rhyme or reason for Jim Montgomery's job to be on the line in Dallas. They made the second round of the playoffs last year. They almost got to the conference final. They were overtime goal away from it. And, because Dallas has gotten off to a bad start, and New Jersey's gotten a bad start with John Hines or, Minnesota with Bruce Boudreau, all these guys are on the firing line. And maybe, I'd say Montgomery, there's no case for him being fired. And, I think these coaches, they're looking at their situations and saying, I got to win. I don't have the luxury unless the general managers told me this is a teaching year and you can play these young guys a lot and let them make mistakes. Unless you've heard that from management, they're fighting for their jobs every single freaking day. And that's why they will opt to play a player with more experience, or overplay Panarin. I told Russ, I said, with the Rangers, as soon as they got Panarin, as soon as they traded for Trouba, that team didn't morphed from a developmental team to a team that's a now team. And that when you're a now team, then your coach is on the line.
And the interesting thing about these teams we're talking about, Dallas, the Rangers, the Flyers, all with about half, it seems like half of their lineups changed from last year. These are teams where you have a lot of new players, and in the NHL, it does. On one hand, a lot of people pick them to do better because they like Dallas and because they went out and they got better players. On the other hand, we always forget that even like last year, the team that made the most changes was St. Louis. And it does take time to get that going. That's the question is you just can't fall back that far. And you have to also not panic. You have to not lose your confidence in what you're going to do. You have to be confident in what you're doing.
That's the case. And I know we're going to talk about the Leafs, but that's the case with Toronto. We're talking about a team that changed a third of their active roster. I mean, their 20-man game roster. They changed a third of that in trades and free agency. And the funny thing is, it's not the players who they've brought in who've had the problems. It's the core players. It's like Tavares was not playing like Tavares last year. Marner was a little sluggish to start the year. Matthews has been great. Nylander's been okay. Morgan Riley, I thought, has been their worst defenseman up until the last couple games. So the core group was struggling. And it's sort of like getting used to new teammates and all that thing. And, there always is an adjustment. It might be better to evaluate these teams at, say, the 20 or 30 game mark after they've gotten used to each other.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the team like in the East, Washington, they're the top. They're the top. They're basically the same they were. Right. Pittsburgh, basically the same team they were. I mean, well, they've had a lot of injuries, obviously, so they've had different players in there. But Carolina lost some players, but didn't add a ton of players. They're basically the same thing they were. And we're not talking about things that the Sabres, have really. We talked about how little they changed in the offseason, and we're all saying, that they're going to be probably, in the beginning of the year, that helps you. I think it does. I think it helps you, benefits you in early year. And I think, it's in sort of the same thing to a degree. There's different things that are going on there. Of course, different coaches. Both teams have different coaches, which changes a lot.
Right, but the problem with both of those teams is you're dealing with short windows. And as we know with the Sabres last year, they had the 10-game winning streak. And during that 10-game winning streak, a guy by the name of Hutton stood on his head. And they won games in overtime. They won games in shootouts. And Hutton was Vezina-worthy in those 10 games. Then the rest of the year, he was Carter Hutton. He was good one game. He was bad the next. I'm not saying he's not a good goaltender. I'm just saying he is not a guy who steals you games. He's a competent 1B or a backup. Right. He is not a starter who plays 60 to 65 games. True. And that's the thing. It's like if they get the great goaltending that they're getting right now out of Ullmark and out of Hutton, then they're a playoff contender. If they resort back to the norm, which was last year, then they're going to struggle to get 90 points.
All right, so here's something Gordon Hall posted on Twitter. I think it's worth mentioning for all teams. So Vigneault boasted that the Flyers have allowed the fewest shots per game in the NHL at 26. But there's a cost at that.
Yeah.
And the cost is those players now that you're asking to play the complete 200-foot game takes away from their offense because they have to struggle almost to play that kind of hockey. And I'll give you, a good example. The Edmonton Oilers are going to struggle at times because they're going to be expected to play perfect defensive hockey and win games. And you have to have the right personnel for that. It's not easy.
No, you're right. You're right. And they I mean, obviously Tippett is that kind of a coach, right? So he has that you've got that going. But the other thing, and the thing about Edmonton why I went with them as being better than most people did, is I really did think that they had two good goalies. And I think that I'm not talking. I mean, Koskinen obviously is they're both off to great starts. I mean, they both have they both have save percentages in the 930s right now. Smith and Koskinen. Koskinen's 4-0. I talking to Hitchcock in the offseason. He told me that Koskinen's going to be a great goalie, and people just don't know it yet. And that's why they signed him to the big contract last year, because they saw it. And that, to me, when you're in a division like Edmonton's in, which that Pacific Division, which is not the strongest division in the NHL, obviously, maybe the weakest, and you've got two good goalies, you're a playoff threat. I mean, there's no question about it. They have a real shot besides having.
But let me ask you this. All right, Zach, let me ask you this. Legit question. So they lose in a shootout 1-0 to Winnipeg. I think that game might affect them because they had to do so much to keep Winnipeg off the board that now they lost too. And so let's see next game what kind of impact that has. I
think the way Tippett, you're right, but I think the way Tippett sells it, and I know our buddy Pete Tessier was texting us that he was at the game and said that McDavid looked kind of lost, and I didn't see the game, but to be honest, the situation there, you would think, is McDavid look a little lost playing in this. This is not his normal thing to do. And he's still putting up points. He's still got 17 points in 9 games, but he does look. I'm not shocked he was lost. The way it works with him in the past, he's going to basically say, "Listen, these individual games don't matter. It's like the process of the whole thing, right?" So to him, we didn't score, but we showed that we can shut down a really high potent offense in Winnipeg, and we can do that is more important.
13 shots. But they spent so much energy to keep it in 13 shots.
Oh yeah,
it didn't help them.
No, but it's showing that them. It's like the long right now. I mean, the first loss game ever. They are, or their second loss, I guess. They are. They have now shown that they can do that. That's something that an Edmonton team couldn't do before.
But Eck, the problem is, and again, I'll use a Stratomatic reference here, and I'll explain afterward. Mm-hmm. You have the best scorer in the league in Connor McDavid. You have one of the best scorers in the league in Leon Draisaitl, and you're playing a 1-0. And that makes no sense. Now, 1-0 means, no forecheckers, standing back.
Yeah. It basically means you're sending one forechecker in.
Right. And that's not the game that Edmonton should be playing. Now, the problem is the game that they should be playing is accentuating Connor McDavid's offensive abilities and the Draisaitl. The problem is they don't
not accentuating Draisaitl and McDavid. They're the two top leading scorers in the NHL right now. So.
No. But the problem is there's nobody else on that team. It's like James Neal's got 9 goals, and that's a miracle. And I think Nugent Hopkins is an excellent player, but there's nobody else there. And that's the problem.
And Nurse are having great years. They're already off to good starts. They both have 9 points. Or no, Nurse has 7.
I'm talking offensively. I'm talking, Joachim Nygaard. Zach Kassian. There's nothing there.
I've been impressed with Bear too. I think Bear is going to be a great player.
I think Bear's having a great start to the year.
Listen, I'm not saying but again, we're not going. I don't want to go down the Edmonton route too far. But what I'm saying is, I think that how they would look at that game would be what I'm saying. If you
want to pick them to win the cup today, we'll listen.
I don't want to pick them to win the cup. I don't think they will win the cup.
Okay.
But I do think they'll win. I
just wanted to see how far gone you are. That's all.
Sixth in the Pacific.
But I want to ask you, this is your opportunity. If you want to say something nice about John Gibson, even in a loss, right now he's the best. Right now he's the best goalie in the league. Will you admit that?
Oh yeah, no, I love. He's a great, wonderful guy. John Gibson's a great. My issue with John Gibson and goalies, in general, there's goalies that are just not, Brodeur, Price. These guys are just ridiculous.
Yeah, you never have to worry about them at all.
Right. But then you have all these other goalies, and who are the best of that group, right? So I look at, sure, they've got good numbers but I really look at who makes the big saves at the big times. Like, to me, that's always what it's been about. Like, it's been like Grant Fuhrer was a great goalie. He gave up tons of goals, but that's like, Carter Hart the other night when he makes that great save that everybody talks about, a week ago. Now he's a disaster, but a week ago he made the save that was the biggest news of the world. That's a big save at a big time. That to me is and that has been my issue with Gibson in the past. It's more about the playoffs. It's more about times like that where you have to make the big saves at the big times. So as far as regular season goalies go, I put him and Bishop in they're both great goalies.
I think the only thing you can really criticize Gibson is I always call him the Matt Murray of the Western Conference, is that he gets hurt every year, but they depend on him so much to be the goalie that he is that when he gets hurt,
without him this year, I don't think.
Right. Oh, I agree. I mean, right now, I think he's obviously if the season we're talking 6-7 games, obviously, but
he's got a 9 save percentage.
Yeah, he's in the running for the Vezina.
Yeah,
he's in the running for
right
the Vezina.
now, but I mean that's very early. And I mean, if you were to put an Olympic team together, the U.S. Olympic team, you would have Bishop and Gibson as your goalies, and who would be your starter?
I might go with Bishop because he's older. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is older, but it also comes down to like key saves at big times that you've seen Bishop make.
I'll go out on a limb. It won't be Corey Schneider.
Yeah.
I will say this though, Eck. If I get to vote this year again, right, and I think I put Carlson second or third last year. You say it's early and it's too early to vote. I agree, but Carlson's the leader by so much right now.
Yeah,
that it might be hard for him to lose it.
No, it's totally not close. It is not close at all. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's ridiculous, and he is again like another great American hockey player. Like I so much look forward to them going to the Olympics in China. Like I really hope that the NHL does it. I think they will. It
doesn't sound optimistic. The last
there's
time
no talk about it. Zero.
No, but I think
unless they get concessions from the IOC, that's the most important thing. I think that the NHL and the IIHF are on the same page. But I mean, just factor this in. How many times have you seen the video? Not that I would want to see it because I hated the moment, but how many times have you seen the video of Sidney Crosby scoring that golden goal in 2010? Very few times. Why? Yeah. Because the IOC owns the rights and the NHL can't show it. So that is what the NHL is fighting for, is the ability to market and show the highlights. Otherwise, they're giving their players and they're getting nothing for it. Screw the IOC unless they change their ways.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of time to do that still, but I think the NHL wants to go, and I think the players want to go, and I think that's part of why the negotiations for the
I think the NHL has angled this perfectly to use this as a piece in the negotiations with the PA. They don't care one way or the other, but as long as they get something for it in negotiation for a new CBA, then they'll be happy to go.
Yeah, because they already know a new World Cup of Hockey's coming, so this is the only other thing.
But if they go, how much do you want to see that USA team and what that would be like? Because I mean, it's just the amount of skill that's on that team versus the team that we last saw in Sochi is insane. I mean, the difference between
Matthews, Eichel, Kane.
I mean, just the defense is insane too. The defense is crazy.
I will tell you this: Canada will still field a great team. Sidney Crosby could be 40 years old, and I'd be worried about him in an Olympics. So there's no issue there. You know what the issue will be for Canada? Goaltending.
Yeah, because Carey Price will be, I think, 34 at that point.
I think he's 32 now. Yeah.
He'll be 34.
I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury will be older. He would be the guy they might go with.
You're going to have older goaltenders, that's for sure.
I mean, the person that eventually that they're all looking towards is Carter Hart. Like, not maybe for that Olympics, but that's the guy that Team Canada is
maybe Jordan Binnington.
Binnington could be a good guy. Yeah.
Hart will be that third string young goaltender that they bring along to get experience.
Because he'll.
Right, but let me ask you two, like Jordan Binnington. Now, is he a name now that will finally come up? Because Canada has been short on goalies.
Perhaps. It depends how he does this year. Like
Matt Murray, Russ. Matt Murray.
think Mike I'm not sure he'll be there.
Yeah, he would be a good. He would be maybe my pick right now.
He's won 2 cups. That usually
got that experience. He's kind of like reminds you of like Jonathan Quick was for the U.S. team. You know, where he's just like so. Matt Murray is such a gamer. Like such a gamer.
He is a gamer, but he hasn't been great every year. We have to admit that.
Yeah.
Ak, I know you wanted to touch on something
because I want to talk about this. It's a debate that comes up all the time, but the concept of when to play your starting goal back to games, like something that just is a big, huge pet peeve of mine. And tonight, so the Leafs play tonight at home against. You're up there. Who are they playing against? Sorry,
Columbus.
They play Columbus tonight, right? And then tomorrow night they play in Boston. All right, so obviously the Bruins, being a team that they hate and the team that they should want to like get revenge off of and stuff like that. That they're gonna see Hutchinson, you know, and today, you know, we're gonna play, you know, Anderson against the Blue Jackets, team that can't score goals. So like that, let's just figure that one out and tell me. To me, this it is such a wuss move to me. Like I don't know other word to use, but it's just like one of those things that just makes me so frustrated. But you have a game, like okay, so they're just basically conceding the Bruins game. And
they're not conceding the Bruins game, but I mean Babcock explained it, and I don't agree with the philosophy. He's like essentially, I'm worried about tonight's game, meaning I'm going to play my best goalie with my team at its freshest, and bank the 2 points hopefully. And you know, if I didn't do that, and we lost game 1 against Columbus with Hutchinson, and then I have my number 1 goalie going with a tired team in front of him. You know, he says, I don't buy into that. I don't see. That's the thing. I don't buy into the philosophy that, you know, first of all, you're early in the season. Second of all, Columbus is a much worse team than Boston is right now. Boston is a team that, you know, is in your division, so you should consider that. Now, the second they have 2 back-to-backs this week. Tonight is Columbus and Boston, and then later in the week it's San Jose at home and then Montreal. Those are 2 tough matchups, and it's really not going to matter, but they're going to stick with Anderson in the first and Hutchinson in the second. And I said to Russ earlier, at the end of this week, if Michael Hutchinson's 0-4 and Mike Babcock starts throwing him under the bus, if that's what he does, then I'm going to have a problem with it because, you know, you need to manage your goaltenders and put them in the best possibility of winning. And he seems to be more concerned, obviously, about his starter, but the starter should be able to steal you points at times in the year.
And you want this. I mean, I'm with you, Mike. I rarely can say I agree with you 100%, but I do.
I mean, I'll tell you this. I'll go one further. You know, I'm not a big sports science guy, but there is something to mapping out your goalies and who's going to play against what before the season begins. If both of them are healthy, put them on a schedule, let them work on their off days. They can have all the load management, all the other things they want. I think right up until the All-Star break, all of that should be pre-planned unless there's injury. And Babcock probably gets those reports, and I think he crumples them up and throws them away.
No, Russ. What he's doing is
this looks like he did pre-plan it. That's to me.
No. He said in the beginning of the year, like the first weekend of the schedule, he said Hutchinson's playing 4 times this month. Why? Because the Leafs are playing back-to-back 4 times. So he's only using Hutchinson in the second of back-to-backs each time.
Yeah, that's not playing
tonight against Columbus is going to be such a difficult game for Anderson that he can't possibly play tomorrow.
No, I mean, this is where he's just doing it because this is what Mike Babcock wants to do. And that's what I'm saying. There's probably 3 people in the organization that don't want to do it, but they can't say anything to it because he's the coach. One of them being the GM, one of them being the sports science guy, and maybe even Shanahan or somebody else in the front office. Yeah. But this is where they are.
This is the problem, Mac. It's like when you do use Anderson, and you know he was great on Saturday night in the victory over Boston. He faced 45 shots. That's the problem. Is the games for Anderson are never easy because they give up tons of shots. They give up quality scoring chances. Yeah. They're still not a very set and responsible defensive team, and that is a work in progress. And even Babcock said it today, and I hate this philosophy. even, he said, I asked him a question about Justin Hall, one of their bottom pairing defensemen, and how he was playing, and he's been impressed with how he's played. And he said, well, Justin Hall's not a offensive guy, so that means he really has to be good defensively to play regularly. My offensive guys, if they give up the puck every once in a while, so be it, essentially. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You cannot get away with having Tyson Berry or having Morgan Riley play 25 minutes a night and say, oh, it's okay to give up the puck every once in a while. That's how you lose games.
They don't have Rod Langway back there. They don't have like
this is what I want to know. Mike, if you asked Babcock in the press conference, why are you using Hutchinson against this team rather than, and you explained everything we just said, what would his answer be?
His answer would be, I'm playing my starter against whatever team plays first because my team is rested, and the number 2 goalie takes second fiddle to the starter. That's what he'd say.
Yeah, so, that is equated thinking.
That's not. It's actually not, because in the good old days, goalies would play all the time. Like, they used to play back. I remember. Maybe I'm crazy old, but I remember a time when goalies played in back-to-back games. I mean, they had players play in back-to-back games. I mean, for crying out loud, it's not like, to me, like, this shows to me, like, make a friggin' statement. Like, go out there. You just played, go out there against the Bruins and make a statement. This are the friggin' Bruins. They have knocked you out of the playoffs 3 years in a row.
I agree.
Well, the one thing is this. The one thing that they will never do, and they've only done it once in the last 4 years that I can recall, when all their goalies were healthy, and that's play Anderson in both ends of the back-to-back. They really don't have a fallback position if Anderson gets hurt. I was just talking with somebody this morning about that. And if Anderson gets – go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how often does Hutchinson come in a game to relieve Anderson?
He's done it once this year.
Yeah.
That was after Anderson gave up 7 goals to Tampa.
7 goals. Right. See what I mean? Like,
I know. He's not. I mean, and Babcock, remember, I mean, he is not a good goalie coach. There's no question about that. He's never has been. I mean, Detroit, he wasn't a good goalie. He won despite his goalie.
And with Anaheim, he had Jaguar, who played every game.
Yeah, well, that's what he wants. That's what he wants. He likes, like, he had odds. But even then, like Jaguar and Brizgalov thing. And then, and then of course he was Osgood and Hasek, all different kinds of things in Detroit that went on. But it's just like, to me, it's so frustrating, like to see them do this, and I think if you're on that team, it's got frustrating into Boston tomorrow with Hutchinson. Like, you're like, okay, and they're not gonna say, of course, he's his teammate, they love him, whatever. But you got to be like, let's go into Boston and beat them. Like, we got points from Boston that we take away from Boston, or points that might get us home ice advantage in the playoffs. Let's try to beat Boston.
Well, here's the big problem. If they lose tonight to Columbus, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, Columbus has played them tough throughout the years, so it's very possible that Columbus could do that. Then now you have Hutchinson playing in the second of back-to-back after you've lost at home, and now if they get bombed by Boston, there's 2 losses in a row, and how does that philosophy work for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you lose tonight, and I've made it known that I will always root against the team that does this. So I get really frustrated because I just think it's a terrible.
I know it's really hard for you to pick against the Leafs.
I like the Leafs. I'm a Leafs guy. Like, that's not true at all. Like, I am a Leafs guy through. I'm a Austin Matthews guy. You're wrong. I like the Leafs. No, I want to see the Leafs. I've picked the Leafs. I picked them to win the friggin' division. I like this is my team. Come
on, you did that. You did that so you could troll them when they don't.
No. Have I ever trolled the Leafs? I troll Babcock.
No, you don't troll them. But I'm not saying you like them either. Like, as a fan, not when we cover. Obviously,
no, as a fan, I will watch their games. Probably, they're definitely in the top 5 or 6 games I will watch when their games are on. I love Austin Matthews. Okay, he's one of my favorite players in the NHL.
We all would watch them, but the question is,
I want them to win. I do.
Until what? I mean, until they play the Flyers. Until what's the whole?
Well, no. I mean, of course, as the fan, the reporter in me doesn't care. The fan in me, of course, still has you still have your team. You're not talking about I mean,
what about when they play the Habs? Do you?
Well,
what happens?
Okay.
I collects the Habs.
Talking about my two favorite teams of all time, there, Russ. Come on,
Okay.
I mean, but if you put him with anybody else in the Eastern Conference, I would say the Leafs.
What about the Sharks?
They're probably
What about the Sharks?
What if they play the Atlanta?
My third favorite team in the East.
What if they play the? What if they play the Atlanta Thrashers on a Tuesday night?
Depends who's playing goalie.
So wait, they're 0 for 3. What about Nashville?
Nashville's in the West. Yeah, Nashville and San Jose are my teams in the West.
Okay, so far there's at least 4 teams that you're not.
There are only probably 4 teams because I'm trying to think if there's another team. I sort of have had to like Edmonton to make my.
We've eliminated 1/8 of the league, Russ. And
hey, what about Edmonton? If Edmonton plays them, who are you rooting for?
What the heck?
All we have to do is work from the bottom up, and we're working.
You're funny. Man. We'll see.
That's great.
I'm just telling you, they are probably my third team in the East.
But they're fun to watch. I watch them too.
They're fun to watch. That's why I like them. I mean, I've always liked them. I mean, I didn't when they were boring to watch. I didn't like them, but I mean, I like them now. But Austin Matthews, I've told you, I think Austin Matthews is as good as Connor McDavid. I've put that out there before, and I think people are crazy. People think I'm crazy, but I think valuable-wise, he's as good. He's as valuable as Connor McDavid is. So that's my opinion. Anyway, I just think that I just wish that this. I've as a goalie myself and as a goalie coach for years, I coach because I've coached goalies too. And in hockey, then in soccer as goalie coach too. Like I've dealt with my soccer team that I've coached for many, many years, a really good travel soccer team. I'm the goalie coach on it. I've juggled 2 very good goalies, 2 of the best goalies in the state. And I get the concept of how it works when you're juggling goalies. You really shouldn't set it out ahead of time because goalies are really not that way. They really are more like they do get hot hands. They do. It's just how they are, Like there's some nights when you can tell the goalie's off right away. It's just certain things,
By the way, if it looks hazy around here, somebody just drove by with a shop vac and spilled out sawdust all over the floor. So,
yeah.
We can finish on this because I don't think we talked about Nico Heishier's contract. And
for 1 second, I want to mention one thing before Heishier's contract because you do follow the Habs pretty closely.
Yeah.
So. When they got Cole Caulfield, we all felt it was a gift. He's got 6 goals and 7 points in 4 games. There's no way he's going to play another college year after this. He might go straight into the NHL after his season, depending on when it ends. Yeah. Tell me what that's going to be like for that kid in Montreal.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. They are going to love him to death. Like he is everything that fan base loves. Like that is the perfect player for them to get in the draft. I cannot believe teams passed him up. I was shocked at the time. In the way, we talked before, the kid in Chicago, who's killed it. I can't think of his name. The small in Chicago. The Brinkat, same kind of thing. Like when he was going, people were passing him in the draft. It was like reminding me of the Caulfield thing. Very just like crazy. He's really, really good players. He just because of their size or whatever have been like Caulfield's he's going to be a Hab for life. They're going to love him up there. He's going to be crazy good, and he's going to bring because he scores. He's super fast. He's everything that Montreal likes.
Yeah, but DeBrincat can't play in the NHL, right, Russ? Now, okay. Let's just say this: there are good contracts, and there are dumb contracts, and there are contracts that can't be explained. Nico Hischier, I like him as a player. I don't understand the 7-year deal other than, and Russ and I talked about this, is this a symptom of they know that they're not going to be able to sign Taylor Hall and this is sort of, well, at least we got Hischier signed because they paid Hischier, who had a good rookie season but didn't play very well last year. They give him, and he's got 1 more year on his entry-level contract. They paid him 7 years at $7.25. That makes the William Nylander deal look good. I don't get it. I don't get what Ray Shero is doing.
All I can think of is he and Travis Hall, he and Taylor Hall are tight. Like Hischier and Taylor Hall are buddies, from what I understand, and they are going to do what they have to do to keep Taylor Hall. I think everything they're doing now comes down to that to a degree. Like there's something that they want to make sure. It reminds you so much of the John Tavares thing on the island. It's kind of crazy. There's so many similarities to it right now. It feels like.
Well, except he shared before nearly as much.
Yeah, but I think that no. I mean the Hall situation. Reminds me of
the Hall. Yes, that's true.
You know, It's like the Islanders started doing a long time ago to try to get Tavares to stay, and different guys they would sign and stuff like that, and it didn't work out. It makes me think that the Devils are really concerned about Taylor Hall. That we're wondering if he's going to leave or not. Sitting back, we don't know everything, but he says, "Oh, I'm going to stay," and they say, "Oh, he wants to stay." I'm wondering deep down. I think the Devils don't maybe buy that he wants to stay. That's my theory. And then they're going to.
If what I heard is true, which is Hall only wants to stay if the team is winning or if he thinks they have a chance to win, then this year he's gone because this team. I think they'll be better than their start, but do I think that they're going to get into the playoff race? I don't think so. And if his signing a long-term deal is contingent on them being somebody who makes the playoffs, then you're going to start hearing Hall rumors about where he's going to get traded pretty soon.
Hall's, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense logically, but Hall's a pretty smart guy. I think if Hall sees them heading in the right direction, it doesn't matter if they make the playoffs this year or not. It matters like if he sees.
I don't know about that. I may differ with you on that.
Maybe. I mean, I just think he seems to be a really sharp guy as far as hockey knowledge. I mean, you can't. I mean, Hughes is going to be a great player. Like that's going to happen.
Sure,
it's not there yet.
I think he's 75% gone. If you ask me, that's what I think. Just based on
that too, you'd be right.
It's just gut feeling. I have nothing to base it, but I want to mention this contract to you, even though it's only 2 years ago. And people will say, "Well, 2 years ago," and I'll give room for inflation here. But people probably killed Jim Benning 2 years ago for the Bo Horvat contract, which is 6 years, $33 million. So 5 and something per year. He averages 0.58 points per game. Nico Hischier averages 0.64, which, again, I don't know if Hischier gets much higher than that. Maybe he can go to 0.70. He's never going to be a point-per-game player. So this seems like it's about $1 million a year overpayment for Nico Hischier.
Yeah. I mean, he was the first overall pick, though, so it's kind of tricky that way.
Doesn't mean anything once you're on a team. Like, what does that?
Yeah, but it does mean something usually. Usually, guys will give them at least 5 years to like. I mean, you definitely get a little more time. I think a little bit more.
No, I'm giving him time. I think he could. He's had 47 points, 52 points. He's not got off to a great start this year, but I think he can get into the 60-point range. I don't think he can get much beyond that.
Yeah. So last thing I wanted to bring in, and Dean in the chat room is bringing up that the Avs are the most entertaining team in the league right now.
No question. I mean, that's why I picked them to go to Stanford.
Yeah, it's so funny. They really are living up to what everybody thought they would do, which is rare. That usually, I was kind of thinking, oh man, they're not going to be able to live up to this because everybody said they're on their way. But they did. I did see that Tampa game the other night, and they did actually make Tampa look bad, which is hard to do.
I was shocked at what they did to them.
Yeah, I remember Tampa. It reminded me of Tampa coming into Philly last year, and I was sitting next to Russ in the game. We were like, "This is like an AHL team and an NHL team. This Tampa team is so crazy good. It doesn't make any sense. Like they were just so good. It really almost felt like a team from like a Red Army team would come over and played them or something like that. But now you see this is this is kind of nuts. And they're a lot of fun. And one fun little stat to end the game with, right, and the show with here. There are 2 teams in the NHL that left, that have not given up 4 or more goals in a game. So they've every game they've given up has been 3 or less. So those 2 teams, what do you think they could be? They're pretty interesting.
Well, I told you one of them is the Flyers. I know that.
It's not have given 4 goals. I mean, they've given up 3 goals.
You're saying not on average, actually.
They haven't given up 4 or more goals in a game this year.
Okay, yeah, I'm going by average. You're right.
Montreal.
Nope. No. They're both Western, which I'll give you that.
They're both what? Western?
They're both in the West.
Anaheim.
Anaheim.
Nope. Shocked, but because these are 2 teams I don't think anybody would have thought of in the beginning. One is the Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks are one,
Edmonton.
and not Edmonton. And the other is the Arizona Coyotes. So the Coyotes and the Canucks are the two teams in the NHL that haven't given up 4 goals in a game yet. Well, all right, folks, remember without the buzz.
One last thing, because we were talking about Colorado, I wanted to look it up. Maybe the biggest steal trade of the year was when Washington basically dumped Burakovsky to Colorado for a second, third. He is a point-a-game player for them.
It's crazy, and there were so many. They've tried to trade him for such a long time.
And I said that's why he's worth more than a second and third.
Yeah, there are so many teams that could have had him that are sitting back now saying, man, well, what the heck? I mean, it would have been so easy for so many teams to add some scoring. Although you have to wonder, you have to be in the perfect situation, and he is in the perfect situation, and why he didn't work in Washington is still kind of beyond us.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of players in Washington. He should have.
I don't know what it came down to. To me, it seemed like it came down to him or Verana, and they chose Verana, which is fine. But why wasn't there room for both of them? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't. Great point. All right, guys, enjoy the games tonight. The Flyers are playing against the backup goal, by the way. So Marc-Andre Fleury will not be in net for the. Does that mean that did the Vegas Knights play last night and tomorrow night?
Probably. So Oscar Dansk is in net. Oh wow.
Yes. So kids, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. I did not do that soon.